What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking about Severance episode 5. Like always, will be a full recap of the whole entire episode. And this one was an interesting one. I definitely have some thoughts on it. Like always, I'm going to recap everything, give you guys my thought process and everything throughout, give you guys my rating for it at the end, and then we'll go into some theories. There's definitely some new theories that definitely come about from this new episode. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, please make sure to like it. Please make sure to subscribe if you're new. But let's talk about Severance episode 5. All right, so the opening to this episode was really cool. It kind of showed like what we expected. A lot of us had theories about what was going to happen in this episode, and in the beginning, that all sort of came to fruition. We see Helly in the last episode, she committed suicide, right? So in this episode, it begins with her coming down the elevator. She turns into her outie self, and her outie self just finds herself dangling. You know, she's committing suicide, but it's like not really her, right? So Mark is actually the one that finds her there. She's already passed out. I thought maybe she was going to die. Because in the beginning, the show even tells us, like, there's a depiction of suicide here. So I thought maybe they were actually going to go through with it. But the security guard comes down. They both cut her down. The security guard sort of tells Mark to, like, just leave. So he goes down to the elevator. And I love how they show him turning into his outie self. It's sort of like this. I think it's this technique. I think it's like they zoom in, but they also pan out. So it creates, like, this, if you guys remember Jaws, where it's sort of like it zooms in on his face. It was sort of like a similar shot like that, and it tells us that he's now turning into his outie self, and you know, he's all sad, and then his outie self doesn't know what's going on, so he just becomes normal and serious. He says goodbye to the guy downstairs, and that's the whole opening. I really love that. I thought it was a great opening. So after the opening credits, Mark goes back to work, and he sees that Harmony and Milchek are waiting for him. They inform Mark that Helly is okay. She's all right, a couple of bruises, but she'll live. This is what we thought, right? You know, they weren't going to kill Helly off, right? She's one of the best characters in the show. And so from here, Harmony just sort of blames Mark because he's her trainee. So she sort of like puts the blame on him, which I feel like everything she does is very meticulous. Like she has a plan, and I know she's going behind the board's back, I think, in some way, which we'll get to. But I feel like everything she does, like putting the blame of Helly onto Mark, I think it was like purposeful for her, you know. And even towards the end, while she's watching them together, there's some game there that she's doing, but I just can't really, you know, place it what she actually wants to accomplish with that. From here, we see Mark read his brother-in-law's book again, right? And I talked about this last episode's video, where I kind of said that I think this book will be like the Bible to them. While he was reading the words, this reminded me of George Orwell's 1984, if anyone's read that. He talks about, you know, like people shouldn't be working like slaves, and, you know, we're treated like robots, and the human mind can break itself off from consciousness. And they go into like all this weird stuff that, you know, this Severance Mark definitely relates to that, you know, being a worker, feeling like you know, you're working for like this government that's like sort of bad. That's what 1984 is all about, like rebellious group and like this dictatorship government. It's not dictatorship, it's a different kind, but whatever, you know what I mean, right? I'm sure everyone's read that book by now. And so I just saw connections there, and I do think Mark will see this book as such a big thing. And I will bring this book up again when he talks to his brother-in-law. I think there's going to be a big connection there with his severed self and the outie and the book. After this, though, we get a really confusing conversation between the security guard and Harmony. As we know from the last episode, Harmony wanted to run diagnostics on the pill that she got from Petey's head, right? She got the screw, and she took that little pill thing out, which was like the severed mind, I guess, of Petey, right? And she ran some tests on it. Security guard came back. And this was confusing here. At this point in time, we didn't really know too much. We do know a little bit more at the end of this episode. But for right here, the security guard says that Harmony was right, and that his memory was reintegrated, which is like his memory was restored, which I'm guessing maybe that means like his severed memories were restored. Like they were able to keep his severed memories for some reason. But then at the end, they talk about hacking, and they want to find out who hacked Petey's pill. So I guess like in order for your severed self and your outie self to converge, like what happened with Petey, it needs to get hacked or something, you know, or like something must happen with some outside someone. I don't know. The show's so confusing at times. So they start passing the pill back and forth to each other. Harmony gives it back to him and said, "I want you to find out more before she brings it to the council." You know, the security guard's sort of worried of why she hasn't brought all this to the council yet, you know? And then Harmony is sort of saying like, in due time, I just want to get all the information first. I don't think she has any plans of bringing this up to the council. Like I said, I do think Harmony's going behind their back for some reason, and I'm not sure why. If you guys have any theories on that, let me know. This whole episode, she talks very cryptic. Like it's definitely hints, but we just don't have enough yet to really put anything together. So now we see Mark in his outie self, and he goes to visit his sister who's pregnant. She's having some contraction problems, so they invite Mark over to help, right? He goes over, he sees the nurse that was taking care of his sister, and they went out on a date with in the first episode. And it's a little bit of awkward conversation. I don't think this matters too much. It's just sort of part of Mark's journey of getting over his wife and moving on, right? So he goes inside. The most important thing I think from this conversation was the brother-in-law saying that you still haven't gotten our book yet. You know, he's upset about Mark not talking anything about the book, you know, when they left at the door. And so Mark says, must have got stolen because I never got it. The brother thinks like this is like a weird thing, like who would steal that book and stuff like that. And so this is my theory now about this book and the outie and the severed version of Mark. What I think is going to happen is I think, this is just a theory, I think the brother-in-law is going to say a quote from his book will make something click in Mark's outie mind. Like he remembers that quote from his severed self. It's just something that I think like, because what other reason would they be going into this book so much for? You know, like besides the severed self sort of connecting with it in some way. I feel like maybe it's going to like resonate with the severed self so much that in the outie self will feel that connection. Just like how the severed self feels that connection with the guilt and the tree, I think maybe the outie self could also feel connection with what the severed self is going through, you know? So maybe I think that's what's going to happen. He'll say a quote and he'll maybe become like Petey, you know, or something like that. Like he'll get some sort of severed flashbacks or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Just a theory. After this, we see the sister go for like a coffee run, and while she's roaming through the streets, she sees a neighbor who like is getting coffee. So she's like, "Can I have some of your coffee?" It's such a weird interaction. I feel like, especially at night, like who would just invite even your neighbor, you know, who's asking for coffee? I don't know. It felt really weird and sort of like unnatural. But they talk. I honestly like at this point, I don't really care about what's happening with the sister and even the brother-in-law. That's just me personally. I just haven't really found the connection with them besides the book. But even with the sister and her, unless there's some big twist with her or with the pregnancy, like I don't know, I just can't really find that much interest from me with that character. But when she goes back home, she talks about, you know, how this girl was friendly. You know, she tries to set her up with Mark, like, you know, like maybe you should go visit her. You know, that's what she's trying to do, make her brother move on and stuff. And then Mark sort of wants to talk serious, and he says, I think there's something up with the Lumen, with the place he works at, you know. So this is, again, just letting us know, like sort of reiterating the same points that we've sort of known throughout this whole show, like that the outie, like, there's something's up with Lumen, right? And now Mark is starting to figure it out. His severed self is, now his outie self is. And so we're just getting closer to what's probably going to be this big climactic thing that's going to come very soon where, you know, it clicks in his head like something's up with Lumen and we have to do something about it. But after this, we get that quiet moment where Mark goes and he reflects on a lot of things, probably, mostly maybe about his wife, but he also gets flashbacks about Petey, so he's definitely thinking about Lumen and Petey, and he's like on the water there. This is, again, like I said, just I think this episode did just circled around a lot of points over and over again at times. Like, it was like the same theme, and we were just sort of reiterating the message, you know, scene after scene sometimes. Like, I feel like the point of this scene was to just let us know that Mark is thinking about Lumen and Petey and the connections there, you know, and his outie self is starting to think more about that, even, you know, so, and that's something that we already knew. But now back at the workplace where he goes, you know, it's his first contact with Helly. Security guard sort of tells him to put on some kind eyes, you know, you're too serious. And so he tries to, you know, have some kind eyes to Helly, but it comes off as creepy, like he just looks really creepy. A little bit of a funny moment, you know, I like how the show tries to make some things lighthearted, especially with Dylan. He's like the comedic relief character. I don't think the jokes hit too well with me personally. I could definitely see how Dylan especially like comes off as funny to some people. Like that's not what I'm watching for. Like I don't need the jokes. I like it. I think actually Jonathan Stewart's character is like the funniest for me. Irving, I like him a lot. But now we have Miss Casey, who is put in the office by Harmony to keep an eye on Helly to make sure she doesn't kill herself again, right? So like she's keeping a lot of tabs on Helly. Like she's just like watching her. If she goes to the bathroom and comes back, Miss Casey does like a checkup on her to make sure she didn't like want to kill herself while in the bathroom, you know. But after this, we get a really interesting scene with Irving. We get a scene where you know, he's typing on his computer, then all of a sudden like black gook just fall in his hand, and he looks up and he sees a bunch of black gook like in the ceiling, and it's like starting to like come down, and then he looks at Mark, and Mark's got, you know, black gook in his eyes. It's like oozing out, and it's obviously some sort of hallucination. He snaps out of it. Now, what's actually wrong here with Irving? Like, there's definitely some theories to play around with. I don't know. I don't have any good ones. Like, I feel like the black ooze is definitely some sort of like interpretation for something. Either like it reminds me of like oil, or like it's definitely like it's hinting at something. Like I don't think it's just Irving having some weird hallucinations about Black Gook, and the fact that like it was in Mark's eye, especially one, it's definitely has to be like some sort of symbolism to something like, like these guys are like well-oiled machines. You know that phrase, well-oiled machines. Like maybe that Gook was like oil, and it was like a metaphor saying like, these guys are, you guys aren't even human. It's like your blood is oil. And like that's like. And then like the blood that would usually be like in the walls, how like that, isn't there saying too like, this place was built like on the blood of like, like there's blood in the walls. I don't know, isn't that a saying like maybe like the oil is like a metaphor for like blood, but like it's Black Gook or oil because the severed people aren't even looked at as humans, and maybe that's like what Irving is thinking of, like subconsciously. I don't know, just another theory. You guys have any theories on Irving's hallucination? Comment them down below. I'm very intrigued by him, very intrigued by these hallucinations. That was a cool little scene. After this, we get another interesting scene. We see Irving go to, I think it was like the copy machine, the printer machine, right? And a painting comes in, and it shows like it was like Christopher Walken's department. I think it was this the right one because there's two versions, right? Christopher Walken's department like eating their department, like they were like eating each other and like killing each other. And Dylan says this is proof of that conspiracy he's been talking about throughout the whole show, right? That rebellion between those two departments, how there was like bloodshed and stuff like that, right? So Milchek comes over and he sort of tries to cover it up, and he sort of says, this was a mistake that it came here. Like, I don't know why. But now that Dylan also saw this too, and, and Irving as well, like now everyone feels like there's something up. It's not just Mark and Helly. It's the whole, it's Irving and Dylan as well. But after this, we see Milchek go back to Harmony. And they talk about Irving, and Milchek talks about his decision about like lying to Irving, and Harmony was like, it was a good decision, I guess. And Milchek asks why she has Miss Casey keeping tabs on Helly, and she starts again talking like these cryptic words and stuff like that. And it's something that like you need to research, like whatever the hell she's saying. Like you need like, and I just didn't do it. And in the last episode, she talks in cryptic words again. You guys in the comments, thank you so much. You guys like actually looked into what she was saying. You looked it up, and I found out some cool things in the comments, right? And so I'm hoping you guys can maybe do that again here. But she says about Miss Casey, she says, I'm trying something new with Miss Casey, And Milchek sort of just like nods, and Harmony says, let's just keep this between us. Again, she doesn't want the board to figure stuff out. So again, there's a lot to discuss here, like why is she actually using Miss Casey and keeping tabs on Helly? And the show does a great job of like giving us just enough to where, we're always intrigued, but it's never enough to make us feel satisfied, like at all, And I'm wondering if at the end of season 1, if we're gonna be satisfied, if we're gonna be like just as clueless as we are now. So then we go back to Mark and Helly, and Mark wants to speak to Helly in private, right? We see Helly, wiping the bruises off her neck. Mark gets her attention and says, "Oh, let's talk without Miss Casey." So they're able to meet in private, and Mark shows her recreation of PD's map. As we saw, he shredded it, but now he's able to, I guess he remembered some of it, and he did some sort of lousy drawing of it. Mark says he wants them to work together in recreating it, but it seems like Helly doesn't really want any part of it. I think she's sort of like at her ends. Like she tried to kill herself. I think she just wants to like kill her outie self, and let her, she even says it at the end, which we'll get to. She says, I want my outie self to die, and I want her to know that it was me who did it. And I thought, one, that's a sick line in general, but even the concept of that and like her revenge tale on herself, her other self, is such a cool concept, and I really do love that. But during this, we get weird scenes with Christopher Walken, who Miss Casey sees that he's practicing some sort of like speech or a joke in the conference room. She tells Irving that he's in the conference room, so Irving goes there. Before they can really start talking, Dylan comes and locks Christopher Walken inside, and he confronts him about the painting, and he's like, we saw the painting, we know that you guys like tried to kill us, the other department. Irving asks him why he lied about the number of people in his department, because Irving saw in the last episode all those other people in Christopher Walken's department, right? And so Irving says that they don't trust their department, as in Dylan, Irving, and Mark's department. And this confuses Dylan. He's like, what do you mean? Like, we're the good guys here, and you guys are the bad guys. While this is happening, this is where Helly tells Mark about she wants to kill her outie self, And then they hear what I thought was a baby screaming at first. I don't know if you guys had the same thoughts. I thought it was like a baby squeal. And I was like, what the hell is that? My mind didn't go right to them killing babies, even though I'm sure like that's what everyone's did, because I didn't think it was going to be that dark. But I was like, what? Like, what the hell is a baby doing here? Maybe they were like testing on them or cloning them or something. But instead, once they follow the noise, they find a little baby goat in the hallway. And they follow it back to where it came from. It's a big white room where some random dude is feeding a bunch of baby goats. And this is where I literally looked at my screen and I said, I honestly, like, I ran out. I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know what's going on with the show at all. All my theories just got way more confusing because now I have to fit in baby goats into everything else that was already weird going on. I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't even know if I can come up with theories. They're going to be wrong. You know, like, I think anything that we think is, well, not anything that we think. I think that, like, we just don't know what's going to go on. Like, there's going to be so many more twists and turns with this show. You know, like, around any corner could be just a different department or a room with some other weird things. They could be doing so many other things. They could be, you know, there's so many rooms in that workplace. It's a big building. They could be doing anything, you know? They're feeding baby goats for, like, what reason? I think it's got to be some sort of testing thing. He even says, like, they're not ready yet. Like, ready for what? It's got to be ready for, like, testing or something, I think. But I definitely want to hear some baby goat theories. I'm very excited to read some of those. And going back to Irving and Christopher Walken and Dylan, he wants to show them the department and meet everyone, right? So they go there. Dylan starts snooping around. He finds the same painting that Irving found earlier that Milchick took, but this time it's different. It shows their department, Dylan, Irving's, I forgot the name, isn't it like RNA, their department, or DRNA, whatever. I'm just going to refer to it as Mark and Dylan Irving's department. It's their department killing Christopher Walken's department and eating them or whatever. So it's the same painting, but it's showing the two different sides, you know? So I think what's happening here is that Harmony, Milchick, the council, whoever is manipulating these two departments, you know, trying to make them hate each other or go at war with each other or maybe separate from each other. Because even when they walk in and Christopher Walken introduces everyone to Dylan and Irving, Milchick even says, like, at the very end, he talks to Harmony. He's like, why are you letting them find so many departments, or how many departments are you going to let them find? Oh, and I'm sorry, it wasn't Milchick who said this. It was the security guard. And once he tells this to Harmony, Harmony says, like, you'll find out, Daddy, which was, you know, Daddy's like a sexual term that you say to, like, you know what I'm talking about. It felt like weird here. I feel like it wasn't like sexual. It was like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's actually her dad, obviously. I just think it was like such a weird thing to throw out there. It was another cryptic thing. I don't think it was just like a horny thing. I think it was something else. But this is what she tells him before he leaves. She says, find out who hacked Petey's chip. And then the episode ends with, you know, with Walken introducing them to everyone. And that's how it actually ends. There's one little line also between Harmony and Mark where after they just saw the goats. And not Harmony, Helly, sorry. I hate how the show has two main characters that both start with H and ends in a Y. But Helly says, like, what if the numbers are the goats? Which I think, like, is a good theory, but it's also, like, it's the show telling us, so it's probably not that. That was just one little line I want to throw out there. So my rating for this episode, it's a 3.5 out of 5. It was in the middle for me. I thought it was decent. If anyone told me, like, if they said, hey, I didn't like this episode, I don't think there was enough, I would say, yeah, I think you're right. It didn't have, like, the tension from last episode. I feel like they were going around in circles and a lot of the same stuff. And like I said, like, they're giving us stuff. Like, the goats was a big thing, which happened at the very end. The paintings were pretty interesting. That was sort of throughout the episode. Irving's hallucination, pretty interesting. Harmony's was very interesting, her stuff, like Petey's chip and, like, what she was saying. But again, it's very cryptic to the point to where, like, I don't even know, like, what she's saying, you know? Like, I can't even decipher, like, what she's doing. The Helly opening was great. Like, the stuff with the sister and the brother-in-law, like I said, like, I just don't care that much about what's happening there. I want a little bit more with Mark's outie self. They're hinting that it's going to come soon. You know, like Mark said to his sister, I think something's going on with Lumen. So he's starting to figure it out. I just want them to get there already. I want him to confront all the stuff with Petey and the rebellion that Petey talked about. I want to get to that already. And, but yeah, like, if someone said, like, that it wasn't that good, like, there's a whole big chunk in the middle that, like, I feel like there wasn't enough, you know? And then, like, when we had that quiet moment on the water, and it was like, okay, like, we know what you're trying to do. Like, I get what you're saying. But let's be like last episode and let's sort of start unpacking even more. It's like, I feel like there wasn't enough in this episode. So that's why I think this episode, 3.5, you can look at that as like a 7 out of 10 if you want. Definitely, I think I was always intrigued at the whole episode. I don't really want to say I was like invested like how I was last episode. Last episode, I was literally like on the edge of my seat, The only time I was on the edge of my seat here was like when I heard the goat, because I was like, what the hell is that? I feel like there just weren't enough. Like the Irving stuff and hallucinations, like we've seen that from him before, It's nothing new. The painting stuff, it's with the conspiracy that Dylan was talking about. That's nothing new. What else was there? Mark's outie, figuring out something's wrong with Lumen. We know that. Mark putting together PD's map. It's like, okay, yeah, we've seen that before. I don't know. I felt like this was a very, I don't want to say filler episode. The show isn't like filler. It just wasn't on par with, I think, with the trajectory that the episodes were going. Like for me personally, I felt like every episode was getting better and better. I know it was only 4 episodes, sorry. And but the 4th episode was my favorite, and I think the 5th one, I was hoping that would keep going up. We'd learn even more, and I'm just like more like confused, which is fine. That's what the show's going for. That's what you watch it for, right? To be confused until you're not confused, until we actually figure out what's going on here. But that's just my thoughts on the episode. I think I touched on all the theories I want to talk about with the goats. I think it's just they're running tests on it for, I don't know, something with the numbers probably. Like there's some connection. I don't think the goats are the numbers. I don't think they're recycling goats like what Helly thinks. I think that they, I don't know. I have no clue. I like how Harmony's going behind the council's back on some things. I don't know why she's doing that either. Definitely a lot to talk about, though. I'm very interested in seeing what you guys say on here, on YouTube, on Reddit, everywhere. Really enjoying the show still. This was great. This was a good episode for me. For me, it was in the middle, but it was decent, but I still liked it. So I had a good time watching it. But let me know down below, what did you guys think of tonight's episode? Did you guys like it? Did you love it? Did you not like it? You feel like there wasn't enough? Let me know down below in the comments. But thank you for watching. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you all in the next video.